Hey everybody, I am super excited to have Jeff Walker, who is my personal mentor, as well as the author of Launch, How to Sell Almost Anything Online, Build a Business You Love, and Live the Life of Your Dreams. That is an amazing subtitle that captures it all. We're going to talk about, Jeff, like your use of story in your book is worth the price of admission. If you're writing a book, you want to study how Jeff uses story because it's amazing. We're going to be talking about how Jeff's book fits into his business. Jeff's book isn't his business, but it sure fits into his business. And then how to turn readers into buyers, because when I teach from Jeff's book, that's like a serious focus on how well he does that. And then what you probably want to learn from him when it comes to marketing, not just marketing your book, but marketing in general. But before we even go there, before I turn it over, here's my call to action. I'm going to repeat it at the end, but here's what I want you to do. You're going to want to buy this book. You're not just going to want to buy this book. You're going to want to read this book. You're going to want to study this book. You're going to want to model this book, particularly if you're writing a book for your business. Then you are going to want to leave an Amazon review. Why do you want to do that? If you are writing a book, you're going to learn that your ability to comment and leave reviews for other authors is going to pay you back tenfold in karma. I'm like so excited about how you use stories, Jeff, because you are the master of stories. You're the master of stories, of using your own story and then using your clients' stories, right? And I notice that some of your clients are in the room today. I want you to talk a little bit about how you choose stories and whose story captures you, because you got a lot of stories to choose from, right? Let's use Amy Small's story, for example.
A good one.
what first of all, I want the audience to hear a little bit about the story, but what are the jobs that telling this story does for you?
Well, Ian, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I think you're going to help me unpack some stuff that I do unconsciously. So I'm looking forward to that. I think, there's levels. I like to think of levels of disbelief. That if you're trying to, we could talk about selling, but we could just talk about convincing people of anything. If you want them to go check out a restaurant, if you want them to go watch a movie, go to a play, pursue a college degree, whatever it is, people will disbelieve you at different levels. And one is that they just flat out won't believe, they think you're lying. Okay, so that's one level of disbelief. If you can get past that, the next level of disbelief is they won't believe that especially like in our world where we're selling something, I'm teaching people how to launch, and they won't believe that. They might believe me, but they won't believe this process works. And then beyond that, they might believe me, they might believe the process works, but they don't believe that I can show them how. And if they believe all of that, the next one, which is probably the most pernicious, is they don't believe it will work for them. I've tried 50 diets. I've never lost weight. Why is your diet going to be the one that helps me? I've tried to quit smoking. I've tried everything. I've done the patch. I've done hypnosis. I've done everything. Why is your process going to help me quit smoking? And so I think at the core, I look at stories as trying to take people through this belief process. And that last one is the one I'm most interested in answering, because, the reality is people probably, by the time they get to the book, I hope they have some level of belief in me. At least they're open to believing me. And now once they get into it, I want them to believe that the process works, and that the process can work in all kinds of different markets for all different kinds of people, and that it can work for them. So, and also, so that's a big piece of story. The other thing about story is it just makes stuff more interesting. We're wired as human beings to listen to story. One of my favorite things, like in video sometimes, or even on like here, like on an interview or something, sometimes I'll just say, let me tell you a story. And when I say, let me tell you a story, most people just instantly, like, they relax. They're like, oh, okay, it's a story. This is gonna be fun. And there's a few people that don't react that way, but most people do. So like with Amy's story, and Amy is sitting right here, so it's sort of we got a little meta piece going. So Amy's story is absolutely ridiculous. It's just what she has done. In fact, we should actually get Amy to talk about it a little bit at some point here. But Amy has a story of having a passion, of having a business around that passion, but it wasn't going well. It was a struggle, and basically Amy, her business is selling is custom hand spun yarn, and she used to sell that to yarn stores, and then the yarn stores would sell it to her end client, or to the end client. And she had really no connection with the end client, even though she's passionate about knitting, and she's passionate about helping people with their knitting and creating community around that. But she couldn't do that in the first version of her business. And oh, by the way, the margins weren't very good because she was selling at a wholesale price to the stores. And so it's a great story of someone being able to take this passion and something that really wasn't working and turn into something that worked really well. And I don't want to steal too much thunder from the book, but Amy has now done launches. Recently did a launch that did $100,000 in sales in a single hour, selling custom yarn, custom hand spun yarn. So this is a little niche of a pretty, knitting and crochet is a big market, but this is just a little sliver of it. And oh, by the way, has created this business where now she's selling direct to her customer and gets to create these amazing community with her customers. She has, I think, Amy, you said it was 73% of your people come back and buy again from you. And so her life, she's built a $1 million business in short order. So as I look at, this story, so first of all, and throughout the book, I want as much diversity as possible. So, and I use that term in the broadest possible sense, because I want as many people as possible to be able to find themselves within those stories. So for Amy, it's okay. So, Amy is, she's selling, and it's a hobby. So anyone, in a hobby kind of niche can find themselves in her story. Anyone with a physical product that struggles wholesaling it to people and struggles with, not having contact with a final customer can find themselves in her story. Anyone who's passionate about a topic and wants to help people and build that community can find themselves in that story. Anyone who has struggled with margins going through, selling at wholesale can find themselves in the story. And then there's just the sheer amazingness of what she has done is just, it's almost mind-boggling. So it just makes for an amazing story.
So I'm going to come back to two things. first one is how you use your own story, because most books that really grab people right from the get-go that are that are involving this author, like you use your personal story really, really well, and you start your book off with a bang. You start your book off with an on your knees moment. And you've been in business a long time. You've had your ups, you've had your downs, you've had more than your fair share of on your knees moments. Why do you choose that one to launch the book?
Well, this is actually something that took a huge amount of work, because what I do is I juxtapose the stories in the book, because there's a dramatic time in my life where I was a stay-at-home dad. I was taking care of 2 small kids. Times my wife supporting a family. Times were very, very tight. My wife needed some financial support. I mean, we needed support. We needed more money, and she needed some support from me beyond taking care of the kids. And so that was a moment of incredible drama, and it had, there was a defining moment where Mary, she was sort of just carrying such a load in their family, and then one day came home and said, in a very emotional way, I need your help. I need some help. I need you to help try to support the family. Just if you could find a way to make $10,000, it would just. And so that was like one single moment in time that seared in my memory. It was incredibly dramatic. The answer then for me was I went through a 6-month or more process to launch my business. But so there's that super dramatic moment, and then there was this long, slow burn to solve that problem. But the story I tell at the beginning of the book is not of the first launch, because it wasn't very dramatic. It was of a later launch that was a lot more dramatic. So I actually tell that story, but I juxtapose it against the very real crux moment in our lives as a family. And so I do a little jujitsu in that chapter, and I'm honest about it, but it's not what I lead with. And I don't go through this big, long explanation. It opens with, that moment where I was about to push the button, and it was a serious gut check. So that was actually a real puzzle that took me a long time to figure out how to deal with that in the book.
It's a composite moment, because what people struggle with, I find, is that they're looking for one dramatic moment and they can't find it, and they want to be journalistic about it, and it's hard, it's hard to break that timeline and compress it in order to create that drama. But I also think it does something else. It triggers something else in the reader, because I think particularly for male readers and male, female, binary, whatever, you serve all of those people brilliantly and well with great dignity and respect. But there's that thing that humans connect to is, I have failed my loved ones. And that it's a really deep trigger for people. And if they relate to that in you, if they see you willing to admit that or feel that, then I think they feel like they can go on this journey with you, and that you're a kindred spirit. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. I think, and just, and it's a classic story, sort of, it's an underdog story. It's a story of having your back up against the wall. And yes, the idea of letting down family, letting down loved ones, it is very, very powerful. And I do tend to be somewhat of an open book. And I know, back when I was a stay-at-home dad, there weren't very many. I know there's a lot more now, and a lot, but I think the story goes way beyond that. It goes to that idea of being trapped, of not being able to provide. I mean, yeah, lots of people, and no matter how successful they are, they have that fear.
So you deal with this fear in the marketing world, and I deal with this fear in the book writing world. What if you only have your own story to tell? What do you do if you don't have like great client stories? Like you could be choosing from thousands of stories that would represent what kind of transformation you provide your people. But what do you do? What would you use instead if you don't have great client stories?
Yeah, don't be literal about this. You can use other stories. You can use other people's stories. You can even use a composite story or a made-up story, I think, if you're upfront about it. But like, 7 Habits, Stephen Covey, he opens that with a story, a very, very powerful story that's not his own. And it's not a client. So you don't be literal. I mean, if a story has truth in it, if its story has resonance in it, it doesn't matter whether it's yours or a client's. I mean, yeah, it's great. Mine are all clients. And so that works with everything I do. I've been doing this for a long time. I do have successful clients, but lots of people we all start out somewhere. We all start out somewhere. And when we're starting out, you can use other people's stories.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about how you use your book in your business, because a lot of people want to write a book and they think the book is the business. And they think book sales are what's going to get them all of that. But how does your book serve your larger business aims or model or however you want to phrase it?
It's a path into the business. So I have a very, very simple business. I have this book, which you can get for, whatever, on Kindle, $12, on hardcover, whatever Amazon sells it for, $20, $21. And, I didn't hold anything back. I put everything I could put in to the book in 300 pages. And then from there, if people can choose to just get the book and go do a launch. And I was just, I have to tell you, I have a story that I just learned of yesterday that you can ask me later about Tiffany. It's just, it's unbelievable. But she's in the book, but her story really isn't in the book. And,
Is she in
but then from there, I'm sorry?
Is she in the new in the forward?
She is.
Yeah.
She is. And I actually met her through an Amazon. She reviewed the original. So I'll just tell you the story right now. Here's Tiffany. And she left a review on Amazon, a 5-star review. And I didn't know her before I saw this review, but the title of the review was, "It launched me into an 8-figure per year business." 5 years ago, I had an idea for a new business. This is her review: an online school that taught women how to take their finances and live to the next level, the Live Richer Academy. And then she goes on to talk about her launches. The first launch, 30,000, 70,000, 250,000. And then she says, "I can proudly say that as of this year, 2020, this former preschool teacher now runs an 8-figure a year business." So she left this review, and I was like, well, that's a pretty cool review. So I tracked her down. I was able to find her online, and I went to her website. I went to her contact form, and I said, "Hey, Tiffany, this is Jeff Walker. You left a review for my book. I'd love to talk to you." So yesterday I got on a call and did that. Well, actually, I talked to her a few months ago, but yesterday we did like a more extended interview that I'm going to release. And what I didn't know is she was a preschool teacher, and her school during the 07, 08 craziness in the economy was shut down, and she lost her job. And then and she was trying to get a job as a preschool teacher, but it was not a good time to land a job. Her condo was being foreclosed on. She had to move back in with her parents. it was just desperate times. And she put together this launch. And in the launch, she teaches people about personal finance, mostly women of color. She teaches about personal finance. And she had been doing that and coaching people on it, but, making a little bit of money one-on-one coaching, because she's coaching people that don't have much money and they have their finances are. So she had built up this little following, but really wasn't making any money from it. Then she did this launch and she did $30,000 in the first 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So this is someone who is about to get foreclosed on, who has had to move in with her parents. And it's just boom. So yeah, I was like, boy, I wish I knew that whole story before I wrote the book, because I would have put that in there. So anyways, coming back. So the book, is $20. And then some people will find me through the book, because I send people back to my website to watch every story's got a video attached to it. So you can go to my website, watch the video. While they're at the website, the reader might choose to join my list. And then eventually I'll open up my product launch formula coaching program, which is a $2,000 program. And then the whole business model is from there. If people really want to go deep with coaching, then we have Launch Club, and that's $12,000 or $14,000, depending on the payment plan and stuff like that. And what I'll tell you is that the book isn't so I've got a fairly significant size business, and each year we'll have tens of thousands of people will join my email list. And I don't think tens of thousands of people join from the book. But when I look at the most significant clients that have come into my world since the first edition 7 years ago, the majority of them came from the book. So the book will bring you incredibly high value, or your book, when you write your book, it's not going to make you rich. I don't know if you know the stats, and I don't know the exact stats, but the number of books that sell 10,000 copies is minuscule. I think it's 1%, of all books everywhere sell 10,000 copies. And, I've been blessed. Mine sold hundreds of thousands, but that's because I've got a big presence in the world, and already have a big platform. So, if you look again, so what is this book? Is retail is $27. And, if you trade publish your book, you're probably going to get a deal where you get about 10 or 12% royalties. And those royalties in most contracts, I think, are based on the wholesale price. So the wholesale price is only 60% of the retail price. So 60% of $27, whatever that is, let's call it about $14, and you get 10 or 12%. So you get about $1.50 or $2 for typical author for a typical book. So if your book's probably not going to sell 10,000 copies, and you're going to make $1 or $2 or best case $3, you're going to make you're not going to make very much money from the book. No one makes much money from the book unless you're J.K. Rowling. That being said, the book brings you enormous other benefits. And one of them is it will bring you higher end clients. The clients you get from a book, or the leads you get from a book, are the absolute best, warmest leads you're ever going to get.
So I'm just noticing here that Lucinda Literary, who's a big time agent, she could run through all of those numbers and
yeah. And I'd be interested, because I could be completely wrong on those.
Yeah.
But I know the central message of you're not going to make much money from book sales themselves is on. Yeah.
So one of the things that people are worried about when I deal with them, which sounds like I have to, wrestle with them, is the fear that their book is going to take away from their course. If the book, you give everything away in the book that you give in the course. Why doesn't it take away from your course?
Because Well, it won't. I mean, my business exploded after that first book. I mean, in a year after it, we basically doubled the size of the business after the book. And it was already it was already a multi-million-dollar business. Book comes out, and then it's just like a hockey stick. Because you're never going to sell to everyone. You know, if you're in online and you're selling anything online, you're in the direct marketing business. And in the direct marketing business, a good rule of thumb for conversion is like 2%. You're going to convert 2% of the people join your email list. You know, it might be 1%, it might be 3%. You put together a great lunch, you follow my formula, you might get 5%. But at the end of the day, you're never going to convert everyone. And so the people who buy your book and don't do anything, they weren't going to buy, you know, and don't go any further with you, they weren't going to buy from you anyways. I mean, obviously I'm talking in broad generalities, but it's 25 years I've been in this business now. The best people, the best prospects for you, the best leads for you are going to take your book and they're going to say, I want to go deeper. I'm ready to go deeper. I'm looking for mastery. That's the way this business runs. You know, you can, I mean, I'm giving it just in full transparency. Everything's in this book. You know, do you get your hand held through the book? No. It's like think of a college class. You know, colleges are still in business, even though there's college textbooks, right? You go to college, and when I went to college, every term you'd spend $100-$150 on textbooks. Now it's probably 10 times that. I can't imagine what kids are paying for school books. But I got the school books and I still went to class and I still paid my tuition, right? So you know, there are people that pay me 20 some bucks for this, but still come in and pay for $2,000 because then they get the full coaching experience. And of course, we can go a lot deeper in that experience. The same will be for you. The benefits. So, you know, I gave you all the negatives of the dollars and how deals work, you know, and whether I had them exactly right or not, I don't know. But the reality is you're not going to make any money from the book. You know, yeah, you're just not. I mean, again, unless you're J.K. Rowling. But it opens doors. A lot of people use it to get speaking gigs, but it also drives leads to you, and they will be the best leads you'll ever get.
I want to quote you. I want to quote you from your book.
Okay.
Life gives to the givers and takes from the takers. And I wonder if that's the message behind your free bonus content, because I teach your bonus content. That to me, like, the genius of your book isn't just the stories and the readability. It is how you, by giving away the farm, by giving away a college course in a bonus, things that would be another book or another, like, you give that away for free. Is that your thinking behind it? Is that what is that?
You know, it's again, the way this world works is there's this dichotomy of stuff being pushed to free and stuff being pushed to the high end. And you know, if you're in this business that I'm in, me and you, everyone here, if you're publishing online, if you're building an online business, again, it's still direct marketing, and you're going to convert those 1 or 2%. But those 1 or 2% they're going to pay for everything else you create, because they're like the true believers. They're the people that want to go deep with you. They're the people that understand you don't get to mastery like this. You don't get to mastery with one book. You don't get to mastery with one video. I've been studying this stuff for 25 years. Like, literally, like yesterday was the 25th anniversary of when I first sent my first commercial email. It's August 30th, 1996. And I still study. I still follow people, and I spend a lot of money to do it. And so really, you're not about being Walmart and selling some inexpensive thing to everyone. if you're in this business, the way this business works best is if you create a premium offering and sell it to the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5%. And what allows you to do that, well, having all the amazing free bonuses, basically it's what Eben Pagan, I've got a dear friend, Eben Pagan, he calls it moving the free line. And what the idea is, the more value you create for free, the higher it allows you to charge prices at. And you don't want to be in the business of selling $7 ebooks online. That's not the way successful, people try that. They try the Walmart model, make my stuff super inexpensive, just doesn't work. There's no one has any longevity doing that. So you want to move to the high end, whatever the high end is in your market, and it varies by markets dramatically. But whatever your niche and market, whatever the high end is generally where you want to be. And you want to compete on value instead of price. And when you provide great free stuff, that you're competing on value.
So I want to.
Jeff, there's a great question in the book bonus. Do you frame it the same way as a launch to crush objections to buying your bigger online course?
That's a great question. That is a fantastic question. So that's really not the way I look at it. Because I think for this, it's like, how could you have an objection to $13? I understand there's different levels of income around the world. So but for the people I want to reach, for most of them, $13 to possibly launch an online business, I don't think of that as being a great big objection. So yeah, this is a really good question from Ro. This is a really good question. So I look at this price level, bonuses is more as being, wow, like it's Christmas. Here's goodies. I'm getting amazing stuff for free. Just sort of like being more like a land grab. It's just, wow, I get this extra stuff, and really, we're offering those bonuses. As much as anything, the bonuses, the way we do it right now is we've got a website where people can sign it, buy the book at Amazon, come back, put your receipt in, and get some bonuses. And it's more about growing the list. It's more about getting people who have bought the book at Amazon to come and put their email address in our site. So in that case, the bonuses that really act more like a lead magnet. And what Ro's asking, like in a launch, when you're selling a higher end product, like I'm selling my product launch formula is what I typically do in a launch, then I am thinking about what are the top objections people have. And then I create my bonuses to answer those objections. So that's, Ro's an advanced student here. So that's the question she was asking there. So does that make sense?
I'd like to interject something that you do that you just kind of skim past. You don't have a bunch of random bonuses and drive people to here, pick a bonus. What you do is in a chapter when you're going to set up a lesson or you're in the middle of the lesson and you could go deeper or that people would be asking questions. You say, hey, I've got one of your bonuses, your list building blueprint, which is super, by the way, it's super useful to authors who want to sell their books. So you want to buy this book just for this blueprint, this list building blueprint that's in the bonus round. So you wait until you know that somebody is going to want something more. This is like a cheat sheet or a goodie. And then you're like, hey, go to my bonuses. So you're constantly driving people at a point where you can really, well, I would call it locking them in for really wanting more of what you got, which is another good way. It's a good segue to talking about what do people writing a book, what do marketers in general need to understand about list building? Because a lot of people don't want to list build because all they want to do is write.
Yeah, you have to you have to build a list, especially like, and I don't know what your mix of your people are, like trade versus self-published. Um,
50.
but yeah, so I mean, if you want to go, if you want to be trade published, and so I'm with Hay House. I moved over to Hay House. I'm super happy with them. They're fantastic to work with. They're real tight in my community. The CEO at Hay House, Reed Tracy, is in my mastermind. So we've got a very tight relationship with them. They're fantastic to work with. But if you want to go to trade published, the first thing that the public, when you go to shop your book and you're trying to get a deal, like, they don't care about your book. I'm sorry, but they just don't. They care about your platform. If you have a platform, in other words, if you have a following, if you have an email list, you could have the worst idea in the world for a book. And if you had a few 100,000 people on your email list, you're going to get people bidding for that book. And I'm sorry to break your hearts, because we got writers here, and writers like appreciate books and they appreciate writing. And, I mean, like, I love books, books are like, it's rare for a day to go by when I'm not buying a book of some sort or another. I bought one today and two yet. I mean, I love books, but the reality is the publishers are in the business of selling books. They're not in the business of marketing books. They're in the business of selling books. You're the one that has to sell the books. And so when you come to them and you don't have an audience, you don't have a platform, they're going to be like, well, we can't market the book. That's not what we do. I mean, they're not going to say that to you, but that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, oh man, that sounds like a great idea, but it's not going to sell any, because the only way books move these days is by people emailing their list and publish, and doing social and getting on podcasts. That's the way books are sold. So if you don't have a platform, you're not going to get a deal. And so start building that list. And you know what? When you write emails, how does a writer get to be a good writer? By writing. That's how you get to be good. And that's how you find your voice. And so building your email list, it not only gives you that platform, but it gives you practice in writing, and it gives you knowledge about what resonates with people.
I'd like to say, he's a perfect example, right? You went with an independent publisher when you first wrote a book, and relaunching this book, launch. You have a traditional publishing house behind you, but I have never seen anybody work as hard at promoting a book as Jeff Walker. And you've got the full weight of a relationship with the head of Hay House. So if anybody was going to be the wonder kid, it would be you. And yet, it's not enough. You're out on just about every platform, and I even get the opportunity to interview you. So like, you're doing the work.
Yeah. That's really our job is, you got to get out there and move it, because no one's going to sell it for you.
In the book, you write about how social media has changed how you market a book, how you market in general. What minefields should authors be aware of?
Well, the first, like, one, I mean, I am not a huge social media fan. It's a part of my life because I have an online business. I think the way I like to think of it is that, well, first of all, I like to use social to build my email list, because one minefield is that social media platforms come and go. Anyone remember MySpace or Vine or Google Plus? I mean, Google Plus was going to be the biggest social platform. It was going to be so big that Google made everyone in the every single Google employee, company-wide, their bonus was dependent on the success of Google Plus. because they are so determined to get in the social game. So some people put some effort. I actually put some effort into Google Plus, and then one day they shut it down. And so that regularly happens to social media platforms. Or other ones, they don't go away, they just lose popularity. MySpace actually still exists, but no one goes there. So that's one danger with social media. Another danger is you could get your account shut down for whatever reason. I know people who have lost YouTube accounts, Facebook accounts, probably others as well, just because for some reason something goes wrong with the algorithm. They pick your account out and says, you know, I'm sorry. In fact, YouTube, you know, I've been publishing on YouTube for like 8 or 9 years. The only thing I ever put there is my stuff that I create. And someone on my team went to go report a copyright violation of someone else violating our using our stuff illegally. And she accidentally pushed the wrong button and reported our video as being a copyright violation. And YouTube gives us a copyright strike. Like they call it that. Here's your strike. You get 2 more strikes, your account's banned forever. And I wrote in and said, no, you made a mistake. It was actually, we screwed up and we self-reported ourselves by accident. And they're like, sorry, you still got a strike. So anyways, those are a couple dangers of social. And then the other one is to just change the rules. Like it used to be it was all about building a Facebook page. I know people that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building their page, spending money to drive people to build their page. And then one day they said, pages aren't that so important. And we're not, even if you post, we're not going to send it to your people on your page. So there's a lot of problems with social. There's also a lot of good of social, but the underlying thing is when you have an email list, you control that. You can download those names and you can move them to another site. That's the only thing that you can actually own in this business. You don't own any of your social properties. So use social, use it to build your email list, but don't have it be your entire audience.
So I want to come back to kind of a bigger picture thing. You tell really exciting stories. You've shown a selection of different kinds of people who have gone through different ups and downs and gotten amazing results with your process. But you're also really clear in this book that this is a process that requires a lot of work. It's trial and error for a while, and that you have to stay in it. Why is it so important that you beat this drum? Because you'd sell more if you told everybody it's easy and wait, take a look at Kathy Hayes. She had a $750,000 launch and she was a weird kid selling corsets. Why is it so important to have that up front?
Because I value my soul. I don't know, it's just like the right thing to do, right? I mean, at the end, so I've done pretty well for myself. You know, I talk about in the book, I've had many days where we've done $1 million in sales. I had an hour, 53 minutes where I did $1 million in sales. And, you know, you don't keep all of that. There's, you know, there's team, there's costs, there's taxes, but still done pretty well. And I haven't grown my lifestyle almost, very little. I drive a Chevy truck. I've lived in the same home for 21 years. So I really haven't grown my lifestyle in a big way. And so at this point, I'm doing this as much for impact as for income. And if I tell people this is easy to do, the reality is it's not. It's hard. Anytime you see people just succeeding and living their biggest, best life and building a business and having an income and creating this great lifestyle and creating positive impact in the world, anytime you see all that, there's hard work involved. And you know that. And Walt knows that, and Tom knows it, and Dorothy knows it. Amy knows it. Amy's working hard. She did $100,000 an hour, but she's working her ass off. she's worked. So if my aim is really to help people and make a positive impact, but I sit here and tell people it's easy, then as soon as it gets hard, they're going to be like, what the hell? This is hard. I'm not going to do this anymore. So, I mean, I think it's just the only way you can affect change is to tell the truth.
So you're a busy guy and you run a really big company. How did you manage to write a book with all of that stuff going on and a pandemic? How did you do it?
Well, I thought it was going to be easier than it was. Really, to tell you the truth, I'm like, Reed, I want to move over to Hay House, and how about if I'll just add a few case studies and touch it up and it'll be good. And Reed's like, okay, I think he knew me, because then I got into it and it was a lot of work. I added 100 pages to it. And then two other chapters were completely rewritten, and pretty much I think almost every page in the book was touched in some way. I mean, even little things like, the first book wrote about teleseminars. That's something that existed before webinars, when it was just a phone. It sounds quaint now, but that was in 2014, the state of the world. So the only way I can do something like this is, that Pomodoro method, where you set a timer, and for me, 50 minutes work. I have to do this first thing in the morning before I do anything, before I meditate, before I yoga. The only thing I do is brush my teeth and then come downstairs and put my hands on the keyboard. And the rule is I set the timer. I put on some white noise with binaural beats, and for 50 minutes, I have to have my fingers on the keyboard. And I go 50 minutes, then I take a 10-minute break, usually go make a cup of tea or do some push-ups. Then I'll go another 50 minutes and set the timer again. So it's just, I can, turn off the internet there. So I turn off my Wi-Fi, fingers on the keyboard, and I'm typing for 50 minutes. And if I don't have anything to type, I just have to type. I don't have anything to type. And so it's 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off, a break, 50 minutes on. And if I do that, if I do 2 of those 50-minute sessions in a day, I've won the day. I put that one in the win column. Because, at the end of the day, I know I can spend a lot of time at my desk actively not working. So doing this is where I do my best to avoid that actively not working. And so 2 of those sessions, it goes in the win column. Sometimes I would do a 3rd session, and then that goes in the superhero column. And I think there might have been one day in my life where I did 4 of those sessions, and then it's just take the week off or something. But that's the only way I could get something like this done. But the crazy thing is you do that, and I think I would do typically about 1,000 words, 1,200 words in one of those 50-minute sessions. I think that's what it was. And then, so 2 of those, that's 2,000 words in a day. And, typical book, I think this is up about 90,000 now, but the first version was 70,000. So 35 of those days and you got your first draft done.
So let me ask you a final question. There's something that I didn't ask you. There's some message, there's some story, there's something that you love about this book. What didn't I ask you, or what is the message, or what is the story that you'd be remiss in not pointing to?
Well, I'm going to tell you 2, and I don't know what the second one is yet, but it'll come to me. I'll tell you one easy one. So the first time I wrote this, I can have a lot of typos when I write stuff, and not like misspellings, but just words left out and stuff like that. And so the first time I did it was with, let's call it a mid-tier publisher. It was almost like it was Morgan James, and they're almost like a combo between a vanity press and self-publishing.
They're hybrid.
Um,
They're hybrid.
yeah, a hybrid. And that works for what I wanted. But they don't really provide any editing at all. So I went and hired an editor, a good editor. And we went back and forth at least 3 full revisions through the full thing. Then I had it proofed 7 times. I came out with a book that had like 0 typos. It was incredible. So then I took this book and I wrote it. I added the new stuff. I tweaked stuff. I found stuff I didn't like. And then I thought, and then I had my wife's like the most amazing proofreader in the world. And I had her go through it. I had another really great proofreader on my team go through it. And then I turned it into Hay House. And they pulled 2,000 words out of it without changing the content whatsoever. So this is something that had been edited 3 times by, someone who I thought was a pro, who was a pro, and proofed 9 times essentially, and still they were able to get 2,000 words out of it, and it just made it a better book. So whatever that's a 200, that's 100 words per chapter they pulled out, and it just, without taking any content, and it became a better book. So I was really, really happy about that because I really care about my writing. The next story that I would tell, just for all of you, and I should be telling you a story that makes you want to go buy my book, but I'm going to tell you a story about writing. And I've been a writer for a long time, and I've written, I stopped counting at 10,000 different emails I've sent out. I stopped counting in about 10 years ago. So it's probably 20 or 30,000 emails. When I wrote the book, it was hard. Writing a book's not easy. And when you think you're done with the book, when you actually think, okay, I've sent this thing off, I'm done, but you still haven't done the cover, and you haven't done the captions, and you haven't done the table of contents, and you haven't done the glossary. That last 10% feels like it's just this is a miserable message, that it's all really hard. But I don't know if I've ever done anything that's so rewarding as writing that book. And when it finally was done, and you finally hit the final send button, manuscript is done, it gets accepted, I just wanted to do another one. It's an amazing thing to birth a book, to bring it out. And so I would just highly encourage you to just, that timer is what got the book done for me. There's never going to be a time where, an angel is going to come down from heaven and say, now is your time to write this book. Now is the time to get your work out there. Now is your golden moment. That's never going to happen. What's going to happen, at least for me, is getting up, and within 10 minutes of my feet hitting the floor, I'm at the keyboard for 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 50 minutes on. And, Anne Lamott talks about shitty first drafts, and get that first draft done, get the second draft done. It's going to be one of the most rewarding things you ever do.
Absolutely. I'm also.
So Anne, could I just jump in? Because we're about 3 minutes to the hour. You had asked me to draw a name out of the hat for a free book that we're going to give away.
Yeah.
And the name I drew out of the hat was my old friend, Kathy Sheba. So Kathy gets a free book. And I've dropped the link several times into the chat to get your free book, to buy the book. And it's also on the link on our landing page. So I just wanted to flag that before we finished up.
That's awesome. And I want to repeat my call to action. If you are thinking about writing a book, if you're contemplating, if you're in the middle of it, you are never going to get good unless you're reading business books, unless you're reading books like Jeff's book that show you how it's done. You have to be reading any number of these books and studying them and modeling them. Buy this book, watch how Jeff uses stories, watch how they do a number of jobs, including watch how they make you feel. Watch how these stories make you feel like you can do it. Then how he weaves in and out of a very specific lesson, and how he'll pop back in and revisit the client's story, and how his own personal story shows back up. Read the book, model the book, and for God's sake, leave an Amazon review, because that's how it gets out. That's how Jeff found that woman who ended up in his book. Show up in other authors' feeds, support another author, do what you can for them, because other people are going to come back and do that for you tenfold. So Jeff, I cannot thank you enough. Your generosity is, you're an incredibly generous person, and your generosity with your time today and your wisdom is greatly appreciated by me, Walt, and the rest of the community.
Well, thank you. And I'm doing a lot of interviews right now, but this one was fun. This was unique, and I really love doing it. So thank you.
Thanks so much.